Yes, my name is Jadison. I am actually a local here. So I actually went to school at Cascade High School, and I graduated in 2016. So I'm a senior now. We're going to be a senior this coming year in Sacramento State at Sacramento State University in California. So my minor is environmental studies. So that is why I'm going to show you my environmental presentation, talk about a little bit about climate change. I also have this presentation because I just went to a 3-day conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and I learned about climate change. So I don't know if you all are familiar with his name, but this man's name is Gore. He used to be our vice president, and now he kind of speaks on climate change and is kind of an environmental activist and goes around to different countries giving this presentation. This presentation is like 560 slides, but I've scaled it down for you all for 45 minutes. So, and then I've also added a few of my own slides. So I hope you all enjoy and get motivated. So this is kind of a sad topic. I just kind of want to throw that out there. I mean, climate change is kind of a Debbie Downer a little bit. So it is going to be a little sad and stuff, but I will get to the more uplifting part, so hold out on me, okay? This is a picture of our Earth today, taken by NASA. So the energy trapped by man-made global warming pollution is now equivalent to exploding 500,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs per day, 365 days per year. So that's a lot of greenhouse gases that are emitted into the atmosphere every day, and just by what we do. So CO2 is being released into the atmosphere faster than at any time in the last 66 million years. So we know it's because of us. So this is not in question. So summer temperatures have shifted. So 1951 to 1980. This is the baseline right here. So as you can see, there are equal amounts of cooler than average, average, and warmer than average temperatures. And we're all fitting right in that baseline, which is good. And this is from 2005 to 2015. We're actually seeing a new category of extremely hot temperatures right over here. And you can see there's just a sliver of cooler than average over on this side. So we've completely shifted from that baseline. So we are really going off that baseline into warmer temperatures. So 2018 was the hottest year on record in 29 countries and Antarctica. This is a picture in Canada, 2018. They had a major heat wave in July, and 90 people died. And we've had a few hot summer days, and you might have been like, oh my god, it's so hot. But in Pakistan, they reached up to 129 degrees. And it's incredibly hot, can't even imagine. And in Kuwait City, experienced 124 degrees, and there was something like a horror movie, as you see like birds falling from the sky. Yeah, birds are falling from the sky due to heat exposure, and they were dying. So very, very sad. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, but there's also these really cold temperatures that we're seeing. In mid-February of 2018, the polar vortex has split in two, bringing bitter cold in parts of North America and Europe, and then record warm temperatures in the Arctic. This is Ireland. It's a major freeze in Ireland in 2018. We are seeing, extreme freezes. We're also seeing in the U.S. and Illinois, major freeze in 2019. And this is happening all around the world. These are just snippets of places. The North Pole has experienced midwinter heat waves 3 years in a row, and these have just been the last 3 years, 2016-17. So the Arctic's oldest and thickest sea ice has never been observed breaking up, and it has been observed breaking up twice in 2018, just this past year. And also, polar bear hunting season is beginning to get shorter because of these warming of the temperatures. So the Arctic has actually halved in thickness, so 50% reduced in thickness since 1980, and that's actually not too long ago. And so, okay, and also the white ice actually reflects 90% of the sun's heat rays. So, and so when our ice is melting, that's less white ice, reflecting the sun's rays, which is leading to more dark water. And so just as you would wear like dark clothes in the summertime, that attracts more heat. The dark water attracts more heat, which leads to more of the warming of our ocean, which leads to more melting of the ice. So it's just kind of that vicious cycle. In Greenland, the ice is melting 4 times faster than originally thought. That's from permanent ice sheets. So these melting of glaciers leads to sea level rise, leads to flooding, coral bleaching. All of these are caused by the melting of ice. So 93% of that extra heat trapped by man-made global warming pollution goes into our oceans, which also leads to more intense hurricanes. So this is in Texas. This was a nursing home where people were trapped in this nursing home because of a hurricane in Texas in 2017. And also that same week, in India, there was a flooding which killed at least 1,400 people. So these are happening all over the world. In Puerto Rico, you may have heard of the Hurricane Maria. 2,975 people died, and that was pretty recently. This is kind of a scary picture. It kind of looks really scary, but this is an extreme rainfall. This is in Arizona in 2016. So the U.S. could see up to an additional 400% increase in extreme downpours just by the end of the century. And globally, floods, extreme rainfall events now occur 4 times more often than in 1980, which is not too long ago. It's quadrupled. So this is a picture, Kenya in 2018. Many people died, lost their homes, displaced from these flooding events. Also India, not only are people dying or losing their homes, but also there's a lot of money involved in repairing these damages from these major floods. So, and a lot of these events are happening in places that are usually more poor countries, and they don't have that money to repair these damages. Also in Indonesia, this is another picture, 22,000 homes have been flooded. So this is happening in a lot of places. So that same extra heat that evaporates more water from our oceans, causing the bigger downpours and the floods, pulls the moisture out more quickly out of the soil, which also leads to longer and deeper droughts. So in South Africa in 2018, we're at risk of running out of water. This is also Zimbabwe. They are, digging underground to try to find some water. They had a very severe, one of their worst droughts in years. Just recently, also China has experienced droughts in 2018. So the main reason people are moving is because there's no food. Because they need the proper soil. That these droughts are making it so their soil is not usable for crops to grow crops. And we're seeing tremendous climate instability and climate migrants moving away from their homes. So this one farmer from Syria said he had 400 acres of wheat and now it's all desert. So this is affecting people's livelihoods, people's ability to feed their families. So it's really a big issue. And also what comes with less food is higher priced food as well. So we're seeing food prices rise, and then we're seeing protests because people are desperate when they're not getting the food that they need. So this is a protest. So also hotter temperatures lead to more increase of fires as well. So this is Paradise, California in 2018. You may have heard of the campfire, it's called. So I actually have some insight on this. So I go to school in Sacramento, and this was not too far away from Sacramento, Paradise, California. So I was actually volunteering at a football game at the tailgate, and the football game was canceled. They sent everyone home because the particles in the air, there was too much smoke in the air and coming from this fire, and we actually had to the school closed down for a week. And there was, videos of fire on one side and fire on the other side, and there was just like a road, and people were trying to get out of this area, and it was just, they were like trapped by fire. So it's really, really scary, and these fires are increasing because of the warmer temperatures. In England, this is happening again all over the world. In England, 2018, there's a big fire, also in Chile in 2017. Lots of land was burned there, millions of acres. In Russia, in 2010, 55,000 people died. That's more than half the city of Everett. So think of, half of your city died in one fire. So that's lots of people. Global systems vulnerable to climate change. So food supply, water, and global health are all vulnerable to climate change. So I'm going to talk a little bit about food supply. These are all of the things that are affecting our food supply. We have nutrition, droughts, pests, fires, all of these things are affecting our food. Rising concentrations of CO2 are threatening global nutrition by reducing levels of nutrients in crops such as rice, wheat, and soybeans. And that's a lot of the crops that we use to make our food today. Also, the nutritional quality of ocean fish have been decreased when temperatures rise in our oceans. Okay, so moving on to water. So these are all the things that are affecting the supply of water, which are droughts, sea level rise, melting ice. Those are affecting our water supply. And then we also have an increased demand of water when our temperatures rise. For industries, demand more water, domestic use, and agriculture. And this is how we're split up right now. So this is our global water use. So 12% is domestic, which is the water that we drink. 19% is industrial, and 69% is agricultural. So agriculture is animal agriculture, so the meat that we eat, and also just regular growing of crops. So as temperature rise, so does our water use. So people require more water, industry, animals, crops, energy, everything requires more water when we have hotter temperatures. And water scarcity already affects more than 40% of the world's population. That's almost half. Okay, so this is a reservoir where they usually would get their water in Brazil. And this is a boat actually right here. So it used to be all filled up, and now it's all dried out. So people are losing these large bodies of water where they usually get water from. And also in the Himalayan glaciers, we get a lot of our water from these glaciers, and we are seeing a very steep decline in these specific glaciers. And also forests, they give us a lot of water as well, and we are cutting down our forests by the masses. And there's a lot of reasons why, which I'll get to in a minute. So this is in 2017 in Brazil. You can see the deforestation right here. 2017 was the second worst year on record for global tree cover loss. So, and we're now at risk to losing like 50% of our land-based species just in this century. And that's not just due to cutting down forests. That's due to climate change as a whole, and all of the reasons that go with that. Also, okay, so one of the leading causes of deforestation is animal agriculture. So these are our cows. So animal agriculture is the raising of cows for our consumption, for our meat consumption. So not only are we cutting down forests for these cows, for the land for these cows, but we're also cutting down forests for the crops to feed the cows as well. So livestock actually uses 30% of the Earth's entire land, so 30%, and that's actually 8 times as much land to feed livestock than to feed humans. So we're having, like in these places in other countries, they're like running out of food, and we are, feeding our cows more than we're feeding humans. So also cows release a lot of methane gas. So methane is a greenhouse gas, and that contributes to climate change. And methane actually has more of a warming effect than CO2. There are more CO2 particles out there, but methane does have more of a warming effect. And methane comes from these cows. So it comes from the gas from these cows. So when they, burp or, comes out the back end and they fart, whatever. So that's that methane gas that they're releasing. And they're releasing this because of what they eat, what we're feeding them, which is like corn and soy, which they're not necessarily supposed to be eating. They're supposed to So this also causes dead zones. So dead zones are, areas in water where no life can survive. And these things that cause dead zones are manure runoff from these cows, and also fertilizer runoff from the fertilizer used to make the crops for these cows. We're also seeing loss of biodiversity, water consumption to make the meat and to, just for the crops to grow food for these cows. So there is something you can do about this issue, which is eating meat less. So especially eating, beef or meat that comes from cows, try to take that out of your diet, even if it's just for like 1 day out of a week. So there's actually a statistic I'll read off to you. So of all Americans, once a week ate no meat or cheese. This would have actually the same climate changing effect as taking 7.6 million cars off the road for an entire year. So think of all the gas that's emitted from cars. You would be reducing your contribution a lot by just taking out meat. So,
are there any vegetarians in here? Just out of curiosity. Kristen,
I'm the only.
I tried it. I'm terrible at it. Mr. Karchner tried it. We're terrible at it. But I think, how many of you think you could do 1 day a week where you try not to eat meat? Just 1 day a week where you try to eat meat. That's 7 million cars a year on the road.
that's a lot.
You can eat other meats besides cows too.
That's true. Like, meats like turkey or chicken have less of a carbon footprint. So that's also a thing. I actually, from learning about this, I actually went vegan, so I'm not eating any animal products. So you can also do that if you feel so inclined.
It's hard to be vegan.
So.
It's really hard to get enough food.
Yeah, I mean.
My stepson is vegan, so I cook for a carnivore, a vegan, and vegetarians. But being vegan is awesome. It's just really hard to get enough food. Like.
Yeah, it can be. I know I eat a lot of veggies, so
yeah,
and grains. So
that's great. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, do some research about it too before you go. If you decide. Okay, so have you consumed any of these products? So raise your hand if you consumed any of these products that you see on the board right here. Okay. Yeah, I know. And now I do want to point out that there is shampoo and lotion right here. Okay, so if you've ever used shampoo and lotion from these types of items. So, okay, I want to ask you another question. So, what is one ingredient that's in all of these items? And definitely keep in mind that there is lotion and there is shampoo. One ingredient, yeah.
Corn.
Corn. Okay, so that's a good one, and we do have a lot of corn production, but no, that's not the correct answer. Yeah?
Sugar.
Sugar? Okay, so there is a lot of sugar as well in a lot of these products and processed foods. But we also have, over there we do have like the lotions and shampoo. Yeah.
Soy?
Soy? No, but that's a good one too. You guys are coming up with good things. Yeah.
Plastic.
Plastic? So no, it's actually so it's an ingredient, but they do all have plastic packaging.
I got it.
Good. Can I ask how you know? Perfect. Awesome. That's great. Yeah, only the second person. So that's great. I'm glad you're learning about that. So palm oil. The reason why I'm going to talk a little bit about palm oil is because it's actually one of the leading causes of deforestation. So palm oil plantation. So this is actually a palm oil plantation, like behind the picture behind all these other pictures. So palm oil, not only are we having deforestation for palm oil, in places like Indonesia, deforestation is very high for the palm oil industry. However, we're not cutting down trees for these palm oil plantations, we are burning trees. So why burning trees is so harmful is because trees actually sequester, they actually take CO2 out of the air and actually keep them in their tree trunks. So they help us, they clean our air essentially. And when they have all the CO2 in their tree trunks, and when you burn those trees, then that just is kind of like a carbon bomb just released back into the air, and then you're, back at point zero over here. So really, it's a really bad industry, and also it's very corrupt. We're making Indonesia a very corrupt industry because we are getting this palm oil for pretty cheap for all these cheap products that you see over here, or semi-cheap products. So that's also bad, and also, biodiversity loss. There's a lot of orangutans that live in Indonesia, and they're being, displaced, especially orangutans, but they're being displaced and killed because of the burning of their forests for these plantations. So I urge you to look at the labels of your products. Palm oil is in most all processed packaged food items, so I really urge you to look at your products and see what's in them, and kind of steer clear of palm oil if you can. Yeah.
Is there an alternative they could be using? Some of us might wonder, is palm oil necessary to make these?
Honestly, I wondered the same thing, and I don't really know, because I don't know how much of a big part it is in these items, so I'm not sure. I mean, there in a lot of items it says canola oil and stuff like that, or vegetable oil, but then sometimes that's to hide why they're using palm oil, so you kind of never really know. So it's just kind of better to steer clear of these items if you can. Okay, also something you can do is go tree planting. So tree planting, I actually tree plant in Sacramento for the Sacramento Tree Foundation. I volunteer they pay less than $3 a day, so they pay them next to nothing, and we, minimum wage get $11, $10.50 is minimum wage, and then that's per hour. So they get less than $3 a day. So we're paying them next to nothing, and they're in poor conditions. They're not treated properly, these workers, and a lot of the clothes that they're producing are for the U.S. And for our fast fashion as well. So 1 month we're like, oh, this is in fashion, and then the next month it's out of fashion, and then you just throw it away. So and then again, all that waste, that textile waste, sits in a landfill for 200 years, just emitting chemicals into the air. So, and actually we throw away 11 million tons of textile waste a year in the U.S. So, lots of clothing waste. And also, in other countries, they are producing cotton used to make these clothes. And that cotton, they're putting a lot of pesticides in these cotton. And so then in neighboring communities, this is leading to cancer, birth defects, mental illness, physical handicap in these communities and people that live around them because of taking these pesticides. And also, the leather industry in India has a lot of toxic waste involved with that because of all the chemicals that they use, and that actually is very contaminating contaminates the water and soil in India as well. So these are some ways that you can kind of make a difference for this. You could donate clothes, you go thrift shopping, just to kind of get that second life out of your clothing. Also, you can buy fair trade. Fair trade is pretty much they, pay the people. A lot of times the workers are in other countries, but they pay them a good amount of money, and they treat them well, and they're in safe conditions. So fair trade is kind of hard to find. I go to farmers markets, and they have a lot of fair trade stuff, but it is kind of harder to find, and it is more expensive. But if you can, I definitely recommend that. Also, become minimalist or shop less. Just have less clothing, and then you'll have less waste, of course. So those are some things that you can do. So who has heard of fracking before? Good. Okay. Some people. Gotcha. Good. Okay. So fracking has, of course, been linked to water pollution, air pollution, and earthquakes. So fracking is essentially extraction of the oil from underground shale reservoirs. So, but to extract that oil, they have to pump chemicals and water into the ground. And there's 596 plus chemicals that they are, putting into the ground to extract this oil. And also, each Each well requires 1 to 7 million gallons of water, and it's fracked up to 18 times per life. So, you know, each well can get fracked up to 18 times and then have 1 to 7 million gallons of water. Like, you do the math, that's a lot of water usage to extract oil. And also, this contaminated wastewater usually is dumped illegally into fields and streams. I did a big paper on fracking in college, and there's a lot of, I looked at like the regulations of fracking, and there's a lot of, it's really inadequately regulated, lots of loopholes in the industry so that they can keep doing this. And it's also causing a lot of health effects in these communities that live around these fracking wells. So in like the Midwest, they have a lot of, the Midwest have a lot of fracking. And actually their water that they, you know, get out of the tap water, they can actually light their water on fire because of the natural gas that's coming back out and contaminating their waterways. So it's just a really not a good industry, and also, you know, leads to earthquakes because of pumping all of that, you know, water and chemicals underground. So yeah, so it's pretty much fracking. Okay, so Florida. And there's a high toxic red tide in Florida, and this is killing thousands of fish, manatees, and sea turtles. So that's happening in 2018. The world's oceans are now actually 30% more acidic on average than they were before the Industrial Revolution. This just shows that it's due to what we are emitting. The acidity also dissolves shells of tiny marine snails, as you can see in this picture, and also coral reefs. So coral reefs, in 2015 to 2017, there was like the worst bleaching event in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and we're seeing coral bleaching all around the world in places everywhere. So this is not just happening in the Great Barrier Reef. So actually in the last 30 years, 50%, so half of our entire coral, in the whole world, has died in just 30-year time span. So, you know, in the next 30 years, which is all of our, hopefully in all of our lifetime, then, you know, what's going to happen if the next 50% dies? So there's going to be, you know, a very major food problem. There's going to be a biodiversity problem, a mass extinction problem. You know, 25% of our marine life rely on coral reefs as their home, as their food source, and also 500 million to 1 billion people rely on coral reefs as their major food source to get fish and stuff like that. So our oceans are very important, and we need to keep them safe. And so something that you can do to raise awareness about this issue is just educate people, you know, put this issue on social media or something like that, because this is kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing. You know, I know we all cut down, or we may see cutting down of trees, but we don't necessarily see coral bleaching, and we're not all scuba diving every day to see this. So this is kind of a major issue, so people need to know about it. So just spread the word. Okay, sea turtle gender is also determined by temperature. In Australia, 99% of young green sea turtles are now females. Only 1% are males. So if you want to expand on that?
So my son goes to Orca, which is the Marine Science High School. You freshmen and sophomores can, you freshmen now can apply for it. Sophomores, you missed it. But it's a 2-year Marine Science High School. And he goes there, and one of his big passions are sea turtles and sea turtle conservation. And I never knew this until he got involved, but the warming of the water and also the warming of even the sand where they bury their eggs alters the gender, because the gender isn't determined immediately. It's determined based on the temperature of the egg as it's being produced, as it's growing. And so because of the warmer temperatures, 99% of green sea turtles now are being born female. So even if we're preserving turtles, there are no males to reproduce the species. So it's a really interesting dilemma that doesn't happen to a lot of species out there.
Yeah, and then of course it's going to lead to probably a mass extinction of the species. So, you know, a lot of sad stuff, and I should have prefaced this with, yeah, it is kind of kind of sad and depressing, a lot of the stuff I'm saying, but I will get to the more uplifting things in a moment. So, okay, population. Okay, so the population of marine vertebrates actually declined by almost 50% on average from 1970 to 2012. So these things are happening, and not only, I'm going to step away a little bit from climate change for 1 second to talk about plastic pollution, because this is also something that's affecting our oceans today, and it is a form of pollution. So you may have seen the video of the straw stuck in the turtle's nostril. That was a pretty famous video, I guess, for a little bit there. So, and also, and this is a picture of a couple birds, like seabirds, and they have a bunch of plastic in their bellies. The same thing for this fish right here, a lot of plastic pieces. And this is an article. It says a beach Philippine whale has 88 pounds of plastic inside of it. That's a lot of plastic. So these animals they see these little tiny beads of plastic as food. They don't think of it as, oh, this is plastic, it's harmful, I shouldn't eat it. So, because it looks like food to them. And, turtles, they eat jellyfish, and plastic bags floating in the water may look like jellyfish, and then they eat it and suffocate. So we really need to be aware of this, and not just thinking like, oh, if I have a plastic water bottle and I just recycle it, because recycling, a lot of our plastic doesn't actually get recycled, and recycling can be good if you reuse the same plastic. But a lot of times it's single-use plastic and a lot of it doesn't get recycled, so it's just better to use reusables, which I'll talk about in a second. So who has heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? Okay, gotcha, some people, okay. So the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a patch, essentially a patch of garbage in the ocean that's like twice the size of Texas. But it's not, you can't necessarily see it from the naked eye because a lot of it's microplastic, so like things like glitter, try to stay away from glitter, or like different like micro beads of plastic, which are some of the most harmful plastics. Okay, so I'm going to ask you another question. So there are two most common plastic items that we throw away, and I'm going to ask you if you all know what those two most common plastic items are. So raise your hands. You can tell me one. Yeah.
Water bottles.
Yes, good. Water bottles are one. Nice. Yeah.
Straws.
Hey, straws. That is a good one, and I will get you straws. But actually, that's not one of the top two. But that is a really good one. Yeah.
Is it facial strip?
No, it's not. But they do have little microbeads of plastic. I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Plastic bag.
Yes, good. Plastic bags. So plastic water bottles and plastic bags are the two most common. So 1 million plastic bags are used per minute on Earth. So 1 minute, 1 million plastic bags are used on Earth. So you may think, getting your couple of plastic bags, like, not a big deal. Oh well, like I'm just one person. But times that by everyone on Earth, like that's a lot of plastic bags. And actually 83 million plastic bottles are used every 3 minutes. So that's a lot of plastic being produced and being used. So if we don't demand plastic, if we don't use it, then the supplier won't supply it. Okay, so plastic pollution. Here are some things that you can do. So use a reusable water bottle instead of a plastic water bottle. Use reusable bags instead of plastic bags. Also shop, shop in the bulk section of the store. Bring your own bags or glass containers. I know they have like bulk section in like Winco or stuff like that. You can just bring your own containers and get. Also use reusable containers, use bamboo products. So bamboo is actually one of the fastest growing plants, so it's very sustainable. I have like a bamboo toothbrush, a bamboo brush, and a coloring kit with utensils and all that. So very sustainable product. Also skip the straw. Try not to, like going back to your straw comment. So straws are very harmful, and this is so easy. You can just say like no, like you don't want a straw when you go to the restaurant. Or if you like straws, get a reusable one, like a glass one or a metal one or bamboo. They have lots of different kinds of straws. Also, trash cleanups. There's 2 organizations that do trash cleanups, Puget Soundkeeper and Washington Coast Savers. And I will, of course, I have them on your slips as well that I'll hand out. Those are 2 organizations that need volunteers to pick up trash. I volunteer in Sacramento, and I help pick up trash along our American River. And it's just, and if you guys like, you know, running outside or walking outside, there's actually this thing called vlogging, which is like pick up trash while jogging. So, you know, that's always something, just if you're going, walking to school or something, you can pick up some trash and then dump it in the trash. So it's just something simple like that makes a big difference. Okay, moving on to the more positive side. So, in March of 2018, Portugal produced 104% of its electricity from renewable sources. For the entire month of June in 2017, 100% of Scotland's electricity came from wind. So in other countries, they are, you know, they are moving towards renewable sources, especially in Europe. They're doing really good things. So in England, the United Kingdom generated more than 3 times as much energy from wind than from coal in 2018. So we are making progress. Globally, wind could supply worldwide electricity consumption 40 times over, and we're only using a fraction of that. So we need to kind of move more towards solar and wind. Going on to solar, the U.S. has 60 gigawatts of solar energy capacity, enough to power 11.3 million homes. And again, we're only using a fraction of that. And this is kind of because the natural gas and the coal and the fracking industry and all that, they are it's money makers, and a lot of people are more money driven than environmentally driven. So we need to kind of think more environmentally friendly. There also is a pay-as-you-go solar power system in developing countries where this is lower cost and it's more affordable systems. Smaller systems here. Solar powered laptops in Africa. Currently, okay, so China has currently the largest solar array in the world. China was really, really bad for pollution there for a long while, and they demanded change. There were protests because the air quality was so bad and it was making people sick. So China responded to that, their government responded to that, and now they're doing really great for solar. So
our librarian, she adopted, you know, our librarian, Miss Wilson, she adopted her little boy from China. So they would go back and forth to visit him. And they lived there for almost a month while they were trying to process that paperwork. And she said when they got back from China, they coughed up black stuff for 2 weeks out of their lungs because that's how polluted the city was. And she said it took about a year for her son to actually breathe well because he had been raised in that environment. So it's bad. Yeah. She just adopted him, what, 3 years ago? Yeah, that's pretty recent.
Yeah, and this is just recently too that they've kind of transitioned a little more towards solar too. So this is very recent. Wow. Okay. Also, there's enough solar energy that reaches Earth every hour to fill the world's energy needs for a full year. So we have so much potential in solar and renewable resources. So just use that. And a lot of people also think, oh, well, there's no jobs in renewable energy. But there actually is. So a solar installer is actually forecasted to be the fastest growing job category in the U.S. for 2026, or through 2026. And the wind turbine service technician is a close second. So we are seeing this industry grow. I actually got a chance to install solar panels on a roof. I did this through Grid Alternatives, and they're an organization that puts solar panels on the houses of poor income, kind of low income communities, and to kind of save for energy bill and also be more environmentally friendly. So it was a really good experience with that. So the power is in our hands to make a change. So we hold a lot of power because we are the consumer. Like I said before, the producer will not produce what the consumer doesn't buy. So if we make eco-conscious decisions within our daily life, then producers will respond to that. So So I kind of felt really sad and defeated when I learned about this my senior year of high school and freshman year of college. I was taking some environmental classes and I was like, oh, this is so sad, like what can I do? So I'll talk about some ways that we can make a difference in a minute. So this is also the People's Climate March in Washington, D.C. In 2017. So people are standing up for this issue and wanting to make a change. So this is some ways that you can stand up and be heard. Join clubs. So when you go to college, I joined the Environmental Student Organization at my college. So when you go to college, go join clubs like these. I volunteered a lot with joining this club, so it was really great.